Let's begin by looking at what is mind. So, we'll look at it in two different ways. Little mind, which many of us are familiar with, that's the mind of identification. It's the busy mind, the one that hooks us into a frame of reference. And when we're in that particular frame of reference, when we're identified with the content of the mind, then there can be all kinds of problems that ensue. And what's happening when we're identified and we're holding a frame of reference, we're seeing reality, we're seeing the people around us, life around us, how we are. We're not perceiving actually how they are. We're, you could use the word projection, which I think can be harsh, and this here Dharma talk is meant to be gentle, but we can then project whatever our frame of reference is onto everyone and everything around us. So we're not perceiving from clarity, from what actually is. So that's one idea of mind, little me. And it's often where many people get stuck. Now, another mind is the greater mind that doesn't hold a frame. We could call this presence or awareness. And this here is the first gentle tip, is that you are not your little mind. So the question is, what is aware of thought? So what's perceiving mind? So everything is happening in a larger frame, a frame that allows for everything. So naturally, awareness, great mind, is kind. It allows for everything. So it doesn't get into the mechanics of pushing or pulling, contracting or denying, suppressing, moving away from whatever might be presenting itself. So, little mind is not a bad thing. So, the first gentle tip is to soften into a relaxation that allows you to settle and perceive and become aware and present to the mechanics of the mind, to the movements of the mind, and notice what happens. So it's kind of a very simple, gentle thing because awareness is always here. And little mind cannot really see its source. Like what's aware of thought? What's aware of perception? What's aware of emotions? What's aware of what's happening? All the movements of mind. So you could say that it's a gentle stepping back, behind, before, to what is aware, to awareness itself. Just take a breath. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. If you just breathe and soften and relax, there's something that's noticing, something that's always here, aware of the movements of mind. It doesn't hold a frame, it's infinite in its availability and always here. Now, I can say this, but without a direct experience, we might continue to loop in little mind, in interpretation, in conclusion, in pushing and pulling. We might try to uh, imagine or think that the mind can get rid of itself. But awareness is kind to remember that it doesn't need to get rid of anything. And anytime that we effort to get rid of something, it only strengthens the mechanics of little mind. So the first gentle tip is just to relax and let yourself be here. Take a breath and notice what's noticing, what's aware of the movement of thought, what's aware of sensation. And let yourself fall between the thoughts, just dropping and falling into the spaciousness that happens when you simply just pause and let yourself be present without pushing or pulling. It's an act of kindness, it's an act of generosity, which begins already right there. A shifting is happening, an unframing. So your frame of reference, the way in which you might hold yourself, begins to shift. So the second gentle tip is curiosity. Now, when we're stuck in a frame of reference, you might notice that during that time, there really isn't any curiosity. So here, as you soften, you let yourself become curious because there isn't anything wrong with little mind. You know, often these strategies that happen in the mind serve a purpose, a very good purpose. You know, in many ways they try to protect something else, almost like a layer, a cover. You know, there can be many layers of protecting mechanisms that are conditioned through development, come from all sorts of places. So to be curious about what is beneath that mechanism, or just to have a curiosity of when little mind is triggered and starts to hook into something, hook into interpretation, hook into belief, hook into some way of trying to get away from whatever might be happening in life. And is really strong in interpretation and in conclusion. So the gentleness here is to just be soft and curious as to what's asking to be protected at this time. So just curious. And in that curiosity, you can begin to discover different parts of yourself. And these parts are not bad or wrong. You know, we all have these parts within us that all have a value, an intrinsic value. And throughout our development, when layers of conditioning come onto us from our environment or from early wounding, these different parts serve a very important role, you know, where they behave in a way to protect something that's more tender, more innocent, much more alive, actually, and very dear and precious to us because it's our authentic expression that didn't have an opportunity to be itself. So these layers come on, they get put on as a way of holding us and trying to serve as a way to protect something that's very precious to us. So we can be curious about these different parts, these protectors. What are they protecting? And then how can we create safety inside our interior environment through presence and awareness so that these protectors can begin to relax? And we can start to discover through curiosity what's beneath, what's being covered over. And this is the wonderful exploration of discovering the mystery that you are. When we're not protecting, when we're uncovering the different ways that protectors may have come in place to try to keep something safe. And that makes very good sense. So remember, all the way from the beginning, there isn't anything wrong. These protectors come on board for a very good reason. So just be curious and how they inform the mechanics of the mind and how they inform identity and how we may hold ourselves in a frame of reference. So curiosity. And then the third is, as all of this is happening in presence, there's awareness always here, there's curiosity, then we open naturally to a deeper listening. So the third point is listening. So when we're not protecting and when the mind isn't stuck in interpretation or conclusion, and these frames of reference are opening, we can listen in a deeper way to what's wanted in the heart, what's wanted in the body. We can listen to for a different kind of response, one that may never come from little mind. That's patterned mechanics. We're aware of that. I don't think I need to say that. But through this curiosity and this deeper listening, a new way of being, a new way of responding to life opens and opens and opens. So this isn't really a one-time thing. It's more of a journey. You could call this the journey of awakening, the journey of awareness, of curiosity, of listening beneath the noise of the mind, beneath reactivity, beneath protection, to listen to what actually wants to happen. What's the deeper yearning? What's the deeper movement of, let's say, your soul, your purpose, or what's truly wanted? What's the most important thing? So listening, and listening never ends. Listening in a very real way allows us to come to a true compassion, a true understanding of why these different mechanics of mind came into place in the first place, and why they've been triggered, and why they may continue. So the listening allows for an understanding, a great compassion for who we are as human beings. It really helps us to come into a deep care, a deep self love with the humanness of who we are. And that's absolutely delicious. And I say gentle over and over again because we can tend to be really harsh with our mind and try to get rid of it. There's absolutely no need because the mind is just a movement and it's moving in a greater field. And this is the direct path.